She had everything: wealth, power, respect. But in her heart, one question burned. Did the man she loved truly love her back? Or was it all a lie? When shadows began to creep into her perfect world, she devised a plan so daring it could either save her marriage or destroy it completely. But what she uncovered in the dark was far more dangerous than she ever imagined. Welcome to the Judge Stories. If you love gripping tales of love, betrayal, and shocking twists, you're in the right place. Please subscribe to help us grow, and drop a comment telling us which country you're watching from. The Sunday sun spilled through the tall, stained glass windows, painting streaks of color across the crowded church. Amara Nwoko sat quietly in the front row, her simple Ankara wrapper wrapped neatly around her, a contrast to the wealth she carried. To the world, she was a billionaire, a woman who had built empires in oil and tech. To herself, she was just a woman searching for something real. That was the day Gabriel walked in. He wasn't a regular. In fact, he'd been dragged there by a friend, more curious than committed. His reputation followed him. Smooth, handsome, and reckless. The kind of man mothers warned their daughters about. But when his eyes landed on Amara, something shifted. Not in him, but in his plan. From that day forward, Gabriel never missed a service. Bible in hand, prayers on his lips, he played the part of a man reborn. And when people whispered, "Isn't that the playboy from Surrelir?" he silenced them with his charm. He sang louder, prayed longer, and somehow always found a way to sit where Amara could see him. At first, Amara dismissed it. Men had tried before, drawn more to her wealth than her soul. But Gabriel was persistent. He greeted her after service, helped carry her bag, asked about her foundation projects. Each word seemed sincere, each smile well-timed. And little by little, her guarded heart began to crack. Diary entry: Amara. They say love is patient, kind, and enduring. But when I looked at him, I wondered if love could also be deceptive. Still, I chose to believe. Perhaps faith had brought him to me. Perhaps God was answering a prayer I hadn't even spoken. By the end of that year, Gabriel had moved from stranger to suitor, to the man who knelt before her with a ring. And though her friends raised their brows, Amara said yes. The wedding was the kind Lagos had not seen in years. The streets of Victoria Island were jammed with convoys. Luxury cars lined the church compound, and headlines splashed Amara's name alongside the man who had stolen her heart. To many, it was a fairy tale. The billionaire queen and her handsome, reformed lover. Gabriel played his role flawlessly. He was attentive, always whispering sweet words into Amara's ear. In public, he touched her hand tenderly, gazed at her as though she were the only woman alive. Guests swooned. Even her skeptics, the ones who whispered about his past life, were forced to admit that he looked transformed. Amara, radiant in ivory lace, believed she had found not just a husband, but a partner who would walk with her through every storm. The honeymoon was filled with laughter and promises. Gabriel swore he would stand by her through wealth or loss, sickness or health. And for a while it seemed real. He prayed with her, quoted scripture during dinner, even joined her charity visits to orphanages. People began to say, God truly touched him. But late at night, when the world was quiet, Amara sometimes caught him staring at his phone too long. She noticed his easy smiles at the waitresses during trips abroad, the way his charm never rested. And though she pushed the thoughts aside, a small seed of doubt was planted deep within her heart. Diary entry: Amara. They say love covers a multitude of sins. Perhaps I should not overthink the shadows I see. Yet sometimes, when he holds me, I wonder, does he hold my soul, or only the empire attached to my name? Still, Amara pressed forward. Love, she told herself, is not built on suspicion but on trust. She would give him her heart, her name, and her legacy. What she did not know was that the test of both love and loyalty was closer than she could imagine. For the first year, their life looked perfect. The mansion in Ikoyi glittered with endless parties. Gabriel always at Amara's side like a proud king. They traveled to Dubai, Paris, and Cape Town, posing for photos that made their marriage look enviable. Amara's friends whispered that she had finally conquered love, while society blogs praised her for marrying a God-fearing man. But behind the smiles, Amara felt small ripples. Gabriel was often distracted, his phone buzzing late into the night. When she asked, he brushed it off. Business partners, old friends, nothing important. Yet she noticed the way his laughter changed, softer, warmer, when he thought she wasn't listening. He grew restless at home, preferring outings with friends, returning smelling of expensive colognes she hadn't bought him. Staff whispered about voices on the phone, unfamiliar names. Still, Gabriel never faltered in public. At galas, he kissed her hand. At charity events, he called her my everything. The performance was flawless, almost too flawless. Amara's heart began to wrestle with itself. Had love blinded her? Or was she imagining shadows where there was only light? Each time doubt crept in, Gabriel's charm smoothed it over. A surprise dinner, a bouquet of her favorite roses, a weekend getaway. He always knew how to silence suspicion before it took root. Diary entry, Amara. Sometimes, I catch myself staring at him across the table, wondering if he is truly mine, or if I am only renting his love until he finds a better stage. I silence these thoughts with prayer, but my spirit whispers, be watchful. Love is not always what it seems. The world still saw them as perfect. But Amara had lived long enough to know that perfection was a mask, and masks always crack. The whispers became harder to ignore. One evening, Amara walked into the living room and found Gabriel ending a call abruptly, his smile fading the moment he saw her. Another night, she overheard muffled laughter through the balcony doors. A woman's voice, soft and playful. When she confronted him, he chuckled, kissed her forehead, and said, "You worry too much, my queen." But her spirit refused to rest. The same man who once sang hymns beside her in church now often came home smelling of liquor, humming songs she had never heard. His Bible, once his constant companion, gathered dust on the bedside table. His transformation had been too sudden, too polished, and now it was unraveling. Amara's friends hinted carefully. "We saw him at the lounge," one murmured. "Not alone." She forced a smile, waved it off, but her heart sank. She had defended him against every rumor. If he truly loved her, why did doubt chase her like a shadow? That night, lying awake beside him, she studied his peaceful face. A thought pierced her heart like a blade. What if I am only an investment to him? What if all of this, the prayers, the affection, was a mask? Diary entry, Amara. I once prayed for a husband who would love me for who I am, not what I have. I thought I found him, but now I question everything. Do I keep trusting blindly? Or do I open my eyes and risk seeing what I fear most? The question gnawed at her until it became unbearable. Amara knew she could no longer survive on suspicion. She needed the truth. Not whispers, not glances, not rumors. A truth so clear it would silence doubt forever. And in her heart, she knew only one way to find it. The morning she announced her blindness, the house fell into silence. Amara clutched Dr. Obina's arm, her trusted physician, dark glasses shielding her eyes, as he addressed the gathered household. His voice was firm, professional, and tinged with sorrow. Madam Amara has suffered irreversible optic damage. It was sudden and aggressive. There is, sadly, no cure. Gabriel's jaw tightened, but he quickly rearranged his face into concern. "My love, how could this happen so suddenly?" he asked, guiding her carefully to the couch. His voice was steady, but Amara felt the faint tremor beneath his words. The staff gasped, some whispering prayers under their breath. Doris, the head maid, wept openly. But Gabriel, the husband she had trusted with her soul, seemed oddly composed. He stroked her hand, kissed her forehead, and said, "Don't worry. From today, I'll be your eyes." His words sounded tender, yet hollow, like lines rehearsed from a script. In the days that followed, he played the role of a doting husband. He spoon-fed her meals, guided her down staircases, and made a show of adjusting her seat at public gatherings. To visitors, he was the picture of loyalty. But in the quiet of their bedroom, Amara felt something missing. His sighs were heavy, his touch mechanical, his patience brittle. Her nights were the hardest. Lying in darkness, she listened. Every shift in his breathing, every whisper on his phone, every chuckle he tried to smother. The mask was beginning to slip. Diary entry Amara. Blindness, they say, robs a person of sight. But in these shadows, I see more clearly than ever. His words say devotion, but his silence says betrayal. I do not need eyes to know when love has grown cold. And in the privacy of her study, when the house was asleep, Amara met once more with Dr. Obinna. Continue the act, he whispered as he handed her another sealed medical report, legitimizing her condition. If he is loyal, you'll know. If he is not, the truth will find you. The stage was set. Gabriel believed she was powerless, but Amara's true vision had only just begun, and she was prepared to endure the darkness, no matter how long, to uncover the truth hidden in it. At first, the changes were subtle. Gabriel's sighs grew louder, his patience shorter. When Amara asked for help finding her scarf, he muttered under his breath, "Useless habits." When she stumbled in the hallway, he chuckled softly before rushing to her side with false sympathy. His kindness had turned into a performance, and she was the unwilling audience. One afternoon, while pretending to nap in the veranda, Amara heard his voice from the garden. He was on the phone, laughing, not with affection but mockery. "She can't see a thing," he whispered. "It's like living with a statue, blind and boring." Laughter followed, and though his companion's voice was faint, it was clearly a woman. Her hand tightened around her cane until her knuckles ached. She had once prayed for this man, defended him against every whisper, and now he mocked her as though she were nothing more than a broken toy. Still, she stayed silent. To confront him too soon would rob her of the truth she needed to see laid bare. Gabriel's mask slipped further. He returned home later, reeking of perfumes that weren't his own. He dressed sharper, spent longer in front of mirrors, humming songs of seduction. At night, he turned his back to her, his phone glowing beneath the sheets. Diary entry Amara. Love is not proven in daylight but in the storm. I gave him the chance to hold me when the world went dark. Instead, he reaches for other hands, other smiles. Each laugh that isn't mine cuts deeper than blindness itself. By the end of the month, the whispers of betrayal had turned into undeniable echoes. Amara's heart was breaking, but her resolve had never been stronger. The real test had only just begun, and Gabriel was already failing. Amara knew suspicion was not enough. She needed proof, clear, undeniable truth that could not be dismissed as paranoia. Quietly, she called her trusted lawyer, Barrister Okoye, and laid out her plan. Within a week, discreet cameras were placed around the mansion. In hallways, guest rooms, even hidden within the frames of paintings. Only she and the barrister knew. The recordings began to tell the story her heart had already guessed. Late-night phone calls filled with laughter. Women arriving at the back gate when the staff was dismissed early. Gabriel lounging on the sofa with strangers, wine glasses clinking, his voice dripping with mockery. Blind as a bat, he joked to one lover, waving his hand in front of Amara's absent gaze. She doesn't even flinch. Imagine me married to a woman who can't see my greatness. The woman laughed, pressing closer to him. Amara watched it all in silence. Each clip cut her deeper, but it also steeled her. Betrayal was no longer a suspicion. It was a living reality under her own roof. Still, she endured, playing the helpless wife while secretly storing hours of evidence. One evening, the footage showed something worse. Gabriel with a young staff girl, no older than 20. His laughter was loud, careless, as though Amara's blindness gave him permission to desecrate the home she had built. Diary entry Amara. I thought the greatest pain was blindness, but true blindness is trusting the wrong heart. He believes he has fooled me, but it is he who walks sightless into his own ruin. By now, her sorrow had turned into quiet fire. Amara was done merely watching. It was time to set the trap that would expose him fully, a trap he would walk into with open arms. The night was heavy with silence, the kind that clung to walls. Amara lay in bed, feigning deep sleep, her sunglasses resting on the nightstand. From the hallway, she heard soft laughter. A man's chuckle intertwined with a woman's giggle. The door creaked open, and footsteps padded into the room. "Relax," Gabriel whispered. "She's out cold. Even if she stirs, what can she see?" The woman's laugh was hushed, uncertain. "Are you sure?" "Trust me," he said, pulling her closer. "She's nothing but a shadow now. A queen on paper, but blind, powerless. I'm the king here." Through her barely parted lids, Amara saw them. His hand on another woman's waist, his lips pressed against hers. In her own bedroom, on the bed they once called sacred. For a moment, her chest constricted, not from rage but from grief so sharp it almost stole her breath. She clenched her hands beneath the sheets, forcing herself to remain still. She had endured whispers, suspicions, even video evidence. But this final desecration tore away the last thread of denial. The woman soon slipped out, leaving Gabriel behind, humming as he adjusted the covers and slid carelessly into bed beside his wife. He smelled of wine, cologne, and betrayal. Amara's face remained calm as she turned to her side, pretending to shift in sleep. But within her, fire raged. Gabriel thought the night belonged to him, yet it was already the night his fate was sealed. The morning after the betrayal, Amara sat quietly in her study, her hands folded on the polished mahogany desk. The rage in her heart had cooled into something sharper. Resolve. With Barrister Okoye by her side, she reviewed the hours of footage, each clip a nail sealing Gabriel's coffin. "It's time," she whispered. Her plan was simple yet deadly. She instructed her lawyer to prepare false property documents, dummy titles to estates she pretended to sign over to her husband. When she handed them to Gabriel days later, his eyes lit up with greed barely hidden behind a mask of sympathy. "My love, this will ease your burdens," he said, kissing her forehead. She smiled faintly, knowing the cameras had caught every second of his eagerness. The next stage of the trap unfolded naturally. Gabriel, believing himself clever, called his lover that evening. "She signed them. The fool doesn't even know she just gave me control of 2 estates." He laughed into the phone. "Once I finalize the papers, we disappear. The money will be ours." His words, recorded in crisp clarity, were sent directly to Amara's private server. Still she waited. Patience was her weapon. She endured his mockery, his absences, his smirks, all the while preparing for the moment when the mask would be torn away forever. Diary entry: Amara. He thinks he is playing chess with a blind woman, but blindness sharpens hearing, memory, instinct. I see more clearly in darkness than he will ever see in light. Soon, he will know the weight of betrayal. The evidence was ironclad. The net was woven tight. Now all that remained was the confrontation, and Amara intended to meet him not as a blind victim, but as the woman he had underestimated one time too many. The night was thick with perfume and betrayal. Amara sat propped against her pillows, her dark glasses on, body still as stone. From the hallway came the sound of hushed laughter. The door opened, and Gabriel entered with yet another lover. A flashy woman in a red dress, dripping with gold jewelry. "Shoo," he whispered. "Don't worry. She's asleep. Even if she wakes, she won't see a thing." The woman giggled as he pulled her close. Right there at the foot of the bed Amara had once called sacred. Gabriel poured wine, the glasses clinking like mockery in the quiet room. They kissed shamelessly, convinced she was blind and powerless. Amara's heart hammered, but her face remained calm. Slowly, she shifted, rising from the bed. Gabriel froze. "Relax," he whispered to his lover. "She's just fumbling around." But then Amara reached up, pulled the glasses from her face, and turned her clear, blazing eyes directly on him. The silence cracked like thunder. "Gabriel," she said, her voice steady, cold. "I see everything you've done." His mouth fell open. The woman stumbled backward, wine spilling onto the floor. "Wait, you're not blind?" Gabriel stammered. No, Amara replied, her gaze locked on him. I only pretended to be blind, to see your heart. The room seemed to shrink under the weight of her words. She pointed toward the door, and at once, 2 security guards entered. Take them both out, she commanded. Let them leave with only what they came with, nothing more. Her husband fell to his knees, clutching at her gown. Amara, please, But she cut him off with a whisper colder than steel. You failed the test of loyalty. You mocked my darkness, forgetting that truth always sees. And with that, the man who once promised her forever was dragged into the night, leaving behind only shame and echoes of betrayal. By dawn, the mansion was buzzing with whispers. Every staff member knew. Madame had never been blind, and Oga had never been loyal. But the true storm brewed outside the gates. Within hours, Barrister Okoye carried out Amara's final instruction. The footage from hidden cameras, carefully edited, was released to the press. The clips spread like wildfire across social media. Gabriel mocking her blindness, laughing with lovers, calling her useless, plotting to steal her wealth. His face was everywhere. In salons, women hissed, "Shameful! A man blessed with such a wife, yet look at his disgrace." In offices, men muttered, "That woman is wise, sharper than a blade." Even in church, where Gabriel had first staged his devotion, people shook their heads in disbelief. Gabriel's phone would not stop ringing. Friends distanced themselves, business partners withdrew, invitations dried up. The man once hailed as a reformed husband was now branded a fraud, a liar, a thief of love. Amara, meanwhile, walked through her mansion with calm dignity. She no longer wore her glasses, no longer leaned on her cane. Her staff bowed deeper, not in fear, but in respect. They had seen the truth unfold with their own eyes. That evening, Amara sat in her garden, watching the sun bleed orange across the sky, the same place where once Gabriel had held her hand, whispering eternal promises. Now silence replaced his voice. Yet in that silence, she felt something new, peace. The scandal had scorched Gabriel's name beyond repair. By the following week, he was unwelcome in the circles he once craved. Friends ignored his calls. Women who once laughed with him blocked his number. And the luxury he had enjoyed on Amara's arm evaporated like mist. But Amara did not dwell on his ruin. Instead, she poured her energy into something new. With the help of Dr. Okoye, the physician who had once stood by her side to certify her blindness, she launched a foundation in honor of her late mother. They named it the Eyes of Truth, a sanctuary for elderly men and women abandoned by their spouses or families. If love has blinded them, let us be their vision, she declared at the inauguration, her voice steady and proud. Dr. Okoye was there too, seated quietly at the front row. For him, it was more than a public event. It was the fulfillment of a private pact. He had agreed to Amara's dangerous deception not just as her doctor, but as someone who believed in her courage. Now, he watched her turn pain into purpose, his eyes shining with respect. Donations poured in, not just from Lagos but across borders. Amara's strength and dignity inspired millions. In interviews, she was praised not only as a business mogul but as a woman who had turned betrayal into a beacon for others. Yet in private, her heart still wrestled with scars. She often sat at her desk late into the night, journal open before her, the pages stained with quiet confessions. Diary entry: Amara. He thought blindness was my weakness, but it became my weapon. From the darkness, I saw the truth, and from the truth, I found purpose. Still, my chest aches at times. Not for the man I lost, but for the love I thought was real. Her staff noticed the change in her step. She walked taller, no longer with glasses or cane, but with the quiet assurance of a woman who had survived fire and turned it into light. The mansion, once a place of sorrow, began to echo with healing laughter again. And though her heart still carried the memory of betrayal, Amara knew she had chosen correctly. She would never let love blind her again. Weeks passed, and the mansion grew quieter, not with emptiness, but with peace. Amara's days were filled with board meetings, foundation visits, and moments of reflection in her garden. The storm had cleared, leaving behind skies that felt brighter than before. But one evening, as the gates creaked open, the guard announced a visitor. Standing there, thinner and broken, was Gabriel. His once polished charm was gone. His clothes wrinkled, his voice hoarse. "Please," he begged, "let me speak to her." The guards hesitated, but Amara, curious, allowed him to be brought to the courtyard. He fell to his knees on the cold tiles, tears streaming down his face. "Amara, forgive me. I was a fool. I let greed blind me. I see now, you were my everything." For a moment, she only studied him, her gaze steady and unreadable. Once, those words would have softened her heart. But now they sounded like an echo from a hollow well. Slowly, she shook her head. She rose, her voice calm but final. "I pretended to be blind, Gabriel, and in that blindness, I saw your soul. Now, I see you more clearly than ever, and I will not be blind again." The guards lifted him gently to his feet. His cries echoed against the marble walls as the gates closed behind him for the last time. Amara turned back toward the mansion, her head high, her spirit unbroken. That night, she sat by the fireplace, pen in hand, and wrote her final reflection. Loyalty is not tested in sunshine, but in storms, and sometimes you must close your eyes to truly see who stands with you. I am no longer blind.